as regular activity.
So when we say exercise routine, I will ask you
Mhm.
another. Can we say, for example, what was it? Uh, exercise, for example, another word. I know that all of this doesn't fit here. I mean, is there any possibility to use these words?
This case, because exercise has become an adjective, it has to go with um,
Routine.
it has to go with something like that, a program or a routine. You could talk about having an exercise capacity, although that phrasing would be strange. You might say a capacity to exercise, and then it would be about whether or not someone was able
That's
to
amazing. I was
exercise.
searching.
It's more common usage to talk about exercise routines, exercise programs. Um,
And
I think it would be an unusual phrase, but not like as an informal way of communicating about feeling like you were in a mood to do some exercise. You might say, I'm in an exercise mood this morning, but it would be very informal. You probably wouldn't write that. Um,
so, and also here,
you're not in a capacity, you have a capacity. Whereas a mood is something that you can be in.
exactly.
It's a strange thing about ideas to do with mood in English is that we're in a mood, but we have an ability or we have a capacity. But also, if we're talking about feelings, we often talk about having emotions. But when it comes to mood, we're talking about being in a mood or in a state of feeling a certain way, a feeling.
Having a
So,
feeling,
so
having
you
a
might say
feeling.
you just don't have, um, you just don't feel or don't have the feeling for something today. It would get a bit awkward to use it in this context, though. Um, you're likely, informally, you're more likely to say, I just don't feel like exercise. I don't feel like doing that.
I don't feel like to study.
I don't feel like studying today.
Yeah, I don't feel
Um,
like studying today. Okay. What about this one?
so the first clause, it's about the days when you're not in the mood. That's that you it's implied that that is a shallower state. You just don't want to kind of on that day. Whereas the ones where you're physically or mentally drained is the word here, physically mentally incapable. That's different. So I guess if you didn't feel like exercise today, that would be different to having a knee injury that meant that you couldn't run or you couldn't lift weights because you had a broken arm or something. And so I think they mean physically tired, exhausted. Again, means mentally tired.
Tired.
I think it is being used as a synonym for tired, or perhaps exhausted in the sense of lacking any energy.
It,
That's right, that you're imagining that your mind has emptied of the energy it needs to focus on the task. And you might have really good reasons for that. I don't know, something bad might have happened, or you've had an enormous, difficult week at work. So when they talk about mentally drained here, I think they mean something that you can kind of see, like clearly you've lost energy for reasons. Um, yeah, so preoccupied means that your mind is returning to something you're worrying about again and again.
can you give me an
Um,
example? For example,
let's say that you had a fight with your wife and you're worried that she might decide to divorce you. Maybe you'd become preoccupied with that personal problem. You'd be thinking about that rather than about
on,
just,
on the
yeah.
exercise. Okay. And when you said that anticipating upcoming events, but
Mm.
I mean, when you do exercise,
So I guess from my own experience, if I had really important meeting or a really important talk that I had to give, I might worry about spending time on something like exercise before I did that on a certain day, because I might be, it's kind of like being preoccupied with it. I might be anticipating it in a way where all my attention is there. Maybe I just want to get to work early or get some more time to prepare. So anticipating upcoming events, it literally seems quite neutral, but I think what they mean in this context is that, again, something that's going to happen has taken your mind away
Mm,
from the
exactly.
possibility of
Maybe.
exercise. Okay, so forcing is being used a bit informally here, and not entirely literally. So when they talk about forcing something, they mean in this context where someone doesn't feel like doing it, doesn't want to do it, maybe is busy with something else or thinking about something else. Forcing it is kind of making yourself do the thing that you don't necessarily want to. Um, so to literally force something would be, I don't know, to force open a door, you'd
Mhm.
probably have to break it. But forcing in this case is a bit more metaphorical and a bit less formal. It's about making yourself do something that you don't want to do.
So,
Well timed means you do it at the right moment. Um, I think they're imagining that there are some ways of organizing your exercise routine that are effective, but not as effective as others. So the contrast here is between um, getting the timing right and doing it when you don't want to, just to maintain a routine. So they're kind of giving you a reason why you might break your routine. Um, it might actually help you to keep a bigger pattern in place in your life that exercise is important to you.
so
That those words together far more effective of forming the
yeah,
adjective.
is it possible to use another synonym for this one? I wanted to use it with effective, for example.
You could use like much more effective.
Much more effective.
Um,
Great. Yeah, that's good.
uh,
And
you could
half-hearted
say can
effort.
be extremely effective if you're
Extremely.
confident that it's actually very, very effective. You
Mhm.
could say very effective.
Great.
But I think far more or much more implies a comparison. It gets you ready to then say it's more effective. This one thing is more effective than doing this other thing.
And when we say half-hearted effort means that something that you put.
Yeah, it could mean that you do it without giving it full attention, full energy. Um, it could mean that you do it while being very aware that you're hating doing it.
And
You could say that something could be far more logical than something else. Um, I think logic tends to be understood as an either or. That is, something is either logical or it's not logical, logical or illogical. So you might say that something is more sensible or more reasonable. That is, it seems to have more um, sense or reason to it. Whereas logic, because logic often implies formal reasoning, you either get the logic right or you don't.
Mhm.
Mm.
I got. I mean,
So
assigning people.
no, it because it's not really an activity that one could have. Like to you assign something to somebody, but you can perform a role. Um, you can assign a role to somebody else. It's not really a distinct career, though, or something that you could do as a job. It's more of an activity that you
Mhm.
might engage in as part of something else.
Uh,
When they talk about a distinguished career, yeah, it really needs to be a kind of job or a kind of activity that people can imagine a career forming around. So, um, the word assigning is not really a job, it's just a task, if that
Mm.
makes sense. Could be both.
I
But what do you call the people who do that job?
recruiter.
Yeah. So you would have has had a distinguished career in recruiting for and then some industry.
Mhm.
So if you were talking, it's unlikely that a recruiter would ever be famous, like in the same way that an actress might be, but
Mhm.
it's possible they'd be prominent in their profession.
Mhm.
So could talk about their distinguished career in recruiting. Um, and then if you were going to talk about some of the things that they did in that long career in their many jobs, one of them would be assigning work to people. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Hmm. It actually means has received acclaim. It means other people have acknowledged that this person is.
When I searched, let me show you something because it has a very weird meaning for me.
Mm.
Acclaim.
So I
Uh,
guess the
it is
best.
public approval. It
Mm,
doesn't. No, who maybe public approval means everyone approve this person.
it is. So what it is it's praise. So they've been praised or approved of, as you say. Um, and it means that the relevant authorities have given that praise or approval. In the case of someone who is an actress or a philanthropist, it's probably critics. Um, it may also be people in the industry who have many times given their praise to this actress. Director who
Yeah.
worked with Helen Mirren may
Mm,
have talked about the quality of her work or her performances
mm,
in public about it. And I think the public thing is very important with this word acclaim. It's this sense of publicity. People have talked in the media, um, maybe at the Oscars. I think she's probably received an Oscar at some point. Times I don't know if she's won an Academy Award.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
Maybe. Okay. So when we say, but regarding the meaning of acclaim, when we see this one, it is it said that critical acclaim, despite the critical acclaim, it means that
Mm.
public approval means what?
So here they don't mean critical as in negative judgment. They mean critical as in by critics. That is people whose job it is to judge certain kinds of things. So judging films or judging performances. So they mean film critics. They
Mm,
mean
okay.
people who write for newspapers and magazines and
So
websites
so
and blogs.
can
Outside of the university, it probably means somebody who, for example, is a professor who's been praised or acknowledged by people in another sector or field. Maybe they've been talked about a lot in the media or they've been talked about by politicians.
maybe
Possible.
oh okay, I got it now.
Although just being publicly visible doesn't necessarily mean you've got acclaim, because maybe there are definitely some people who get attention but don't get praise. Um,
Okay.
like
I
you
got it
wouldn't
now.
you wouldn't let me think. Uh,
For example, Donald Trump. I know that some people like him, but maybe 10% doesn't like him,
you
20%.
know that he was an acclaimed television personality
Mm,
because I don't think because I know he appeared in some TV shows. Um, but firstly, he's not known for that as his career, but also I don't think his performances were ever praised.
yeah.
I
No,
think people were fascinated, but I don't think that they praised him.
I,
Movie when I was a kid, Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, and
oh really?
he appeared and he
As a thief, maybe.
talks talks to Macaulay Culkin, one of the
Mm,
actors, at one point in the film. So
okay.
yeah,
I will definitely.
I don't
So,
think it's a good movie.
and here, you see, Helen's talent quickly propelled her. Propel
Mm,
means, have you
yeah, it pushed her. It carried her, might be another way. So you're imagining that her talent is like an engine that's dragging her forward.
Or
Yeah,
assigning her.
you could say her talent quickly earned her leading roles, but it wouldn't propel her to leading roles. You could say that her talent quickly um, established her in leading roles. That's another possibility. So it's actually the preposition to, that combination there, that means that a word like propelled, you could say pushed,
Pushed her
but that
to.
but that is a slightly different implication. You might say that her dedication pushed her to um, audition for leading roles. Um,
But why?
yeah, because it's earning her something, like earning her a prize or earning her a kind of wage, rather than pushing her or carrying her to do something. Yeah,
Earned her leading roles. Great.
yeah.
And what was the last one? Yeah, this one.
A bit of a mouthful to say it out loud, isn't it?
Yeah,
Her remarkable versatility has seen her portray a wide array of characters. So the prosody, I would, wide is kind of a natural pause, a wide array that you slow down there of characters, earning her numerous awards. Um, but I might consider, I would practice that if I were going to say it aloud, like as part of a speech. Um, Otherwise, I might consider changing it if it were to say rather than to read,
I got it. Yeah,
because it implies that someone has,
assign
or
her.
some process has chosen. I guess it doesn't imply that there's merit involved or that there's something deserved. So if it's an award, we don't assign awards, we award them or we give them, or someone can earn them or they can win them,
Mm,
because it's a positive thing, whereas assign is too neutral. You could assign resources to a project, or you could assign um, a task to a team member, but they don't earn a task or earn resources.
great.
Yeah. Although in this case, it's versatility. It's her versatility. So it's something that she's done, doesn't give her awards. It wins her awards, or it earns her awards, or it attracts awards to her. Um, so it's
S-
actually about her qualities. Can talk about giving an award. You couldn't use it right here. It
mhm,
would be the Academy has given her an award for her remarkable versatility. Have to change the order of the subjects.
I got it.
Mm.
And with a deep commitment to arts education,
He has
interact.
interacted with numerous young actors, but it would be very neutral. It wouldn't imply that she was showing her deep commitment, because interacted with could mean she talked to them or looked at them.
Uh,
She has propelled numerous young actors. I I don't know if we would talk about that kind of mechanical process. Um, you could talk about her having supported numerous young actors, but you might want to say how she supported them. Um, did she support them by paying them? Did she support them through giving advice? Did she support them? Whereas mentoring implies a relationship, a kind of, it's a relationship of giving advice, giving guidance, um, and so on.
so
From
what?
a,
Uh,
you could say she has pushed numerous young actors, and then you could elaborate on how she's pushed them, and then you could potentially use that. Because to push someone could mean a lot of things.
mhm,
She's pushed, if she'd pushed numerous young actors um, into more prominent roles, or um, into the public eye, then you would have a sense that she's working behind the scenes and she's working on them in some way. That might work.
okay.
Hmm. Okay, so So this is to do with whether architects um whether no they are talking about it's a talent that they've already got, and that um so because of that they're going to succeed. So sometimes people talk about this in relation to art forms, like um they might say that someone is a very talented musician and that's why everyone likes them, likes their music. Um, but what they're pointing out here, of course, is that's not enough. It's a necessary condition, but not a sufficient condition for architecture. Um,
So
yeah, I think a talent in general, it's not that it's innate that makes it different to other people, it's that it's a talent. If you've got a talent or perhaps a gift for something, that is it makes sense to you more easily than for other people.
yes, but what innate talent? I got it.
So innate implies that that's something that has come from inside you rather than
Learning by
the
learning.
the word talent is a bit ambiguous because sometimes it's taken to mean something innate and sometimes it's taken to mean something that you create through exposure and practice. So they've included the word innate to be more specific, to make sure we know that this is actually about the idea of something that people have inside them already, rather than something that they've worked to achieve.
Uh,
Yes, although if so you could talk about them having an innate talent for mathematics or an innate talent for physics. You might, if they're unusual, if they're, 2 or 3 standard deviations higher than the median, you might start to talk about gifts or
Gifted
even
talent, gifted
having a
person.
gift,
Mm.
yeah, for mathematics, or maybe having a genius for mathematics.
I did.
That's when you might start to talk
Mhm,
about something more than talent.
mhm.
Um, so there are a few different words that are used in this way. Talent doesn't necessarily imply that they're incredible or the top of, the top of their field in the world. It implies that they're good at something and they find it easier than other people might. Yes,
Okay.
yeah. And some people use gifted to talk about just the innate part. And they say that there's actually a lot of people walking around who are gifted in various ways, but they never develop talents because they're not given an opportunity. So the terms are used in slightly different ways in by different people in different situations, but they all have that in common. They're about something that is seen to come from inside. So what they're saying, this phrase, drawing parallels to X, um, something about Y, what they're saying is that there's a kind of analogy. So learning architecture is like learning musical instruments.
I got it.
Um,
But let me show you something.
learning to be an architect is similar in a really important way to the idea of learning how to master a musical instrument. Instrument would take years.
I got it.
Um, you know, I'm not a musician, but when I was a kid, I studied piano. I did piano practice, and maybe it took 3 or 4 years
Mm.
to get from not being able to play to being able to do some exams or something. If I had an innate talent, I might have moved more quickly. Um,
I got it. And the last,
yeah, so I think we were talking about a similar usage with interpersonal dynamics. Uh, so it's about the
because,
different
uh,
about that formation, maintenance, and transformation. They say the
oh,
three there. So
transformation.
it's the
What's
way
that?
that the different forces act on a culture. So you could talk about how, for example, social media changed the cultural dynamics in Australia. Uh, big change was that people stopped watching their televisions in the evenings and started reading what their friends said about
Mm.
other things, or they watch TV shows together, or
They used to, you mean?
yeah,
I got it. Perfect.
change the cultural dynamics. And that's just one change. You could talk about other things that influence cultural dynamics as well. Like they say, social, societal trends and technological advancements. But also just the way people interact with each other does change.
Yeah. Thank you. Adam, can we have 5 minute break?
Yep.